finish by tomorrow. Okay, so this will also serve as your review for your final exam this coming Wednesday. Okay, so your final exam is on Wednesday, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. So let's begin number one. Mhm. Yeah. The lamina densa within the epithelial attachment is primarily composed of which collagen fiber type? Type 1, type 2, type 3, or type 4? Do you think is the answer here? It's, it's type letter D, type 4. Okay, the answer is letter D, type 4. Wait lang ha. Kahit mag-login kayo ulit at tatanggalin ko ulit kayo. Wait lang. Okay. So the answer is letter D, type 4. Okay. So we have here the basal lamina. So the basal lamina has three distinct layer. Okay. So these are your lamina lucida, lamina lucida, lamina densa, and your lamina reticularis. Okay, so remember this lamina lucida, lamina densa, and lamina reticularis. And your lamina densa is composed of your collagen type 4. Okay, so it's different from your lamina propria. Okay, so we have here your lamina propria consists of loose connective tissue within the connective tissue of papilla, along with blood vessels. Okay, so it consists of abundant network of type 1 collagen fibers, and the deep collagen would be type 3. Looking at this table here, I think I have a table. Yeah. If you look closely, basal lamina here is type 4 collagen. And of course, periodontal ligament, this one, it's type 1. So if you need to remember two things here, these are the ones that you need to remember. Type 1 and type 4. Type 1 for your PDL, type 4 for your basal lamina. All right. Next, we have generalized interproximal attachment loss affecting at least three permanent teeth other than first molars and incisors. So you have three permanent teeth other than the first molars and incisors. How would you classify this one? Is it localized aggressive, generalized chronic, necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis, or necrotizing ulcerative periodontitis? So for this one, the answer is letter D, generalized aggressive periodontitis. Okay, so let's differentiate aggressive periodontitis from chronic periodontitis. The classification of aggressive perio and chronic perio falls under the 1999 classification. If you still remember, we have three classification existing. So we have your 1989, 1999, and your 2017 classification. We don't use 1989 classification anymore. Some dentists would still use the 1999, but currently we should be using 2017 classification already. Okay, so for the 1999 classification, they classified periodontitis whether it is aggressive or chronic. So they mentioned that if the periodontal disease is slowly progressing, it is chronic periodontitis. If it's fast progressing, it's aggressive periodontitis. Okay. So how would you now be able to say if it's slowly progressing or fast progressing? Okay, because you're not able to observe the course of the disease, diba? So when patient comes to your clinic, it's your first time seeing that condition. How would you be able to tell now if it's slowly progressing or fast progressing? You need to consider several factors here. First, you need to consider the patient's age, okay, the amount of deposit, and the amount of destruction that has happened on the area. Okay, comparing a 22 years old, 22-year-old patient from a 54-year-old patient, let's say. Okay, 22-year-old has minimal amount of deposit, while 54 years old has heavy amount of deposit. Okay. However, when you check the PPD of 22-year-old, PPD measures around 9 to 11 millimeters, while for 54-year-old, the PPD would measure around 4 to 5 millimeters only. Looking at this data here, the patient is still young. There's a very minimal amount of deposit. However, the destruction is very pronounced. Okay, malaki yung destruction that's happening on the area. So you can say now that this patient has a fast progressing disease. However, for this 54-year-old, there's heavy calcular deposit and plaque. Okay. However, the destruction is only around, or the PPD is only around 4 to 5 millimeter. You'll be able to tell now that the disease here is slowly progressing. So it would give you a clue that this patient would most likely have a chronic type of periodontitis, while this patient would have an aggressive type of periodontitis. Okay. Another thing that you need to consider is the pattern of bone loss, whether it is horizontal or vertical. Okay. So when you say horizontal bone loss, oops, when you say horizontal bone loss, if this is the tooth, okay, and this is the alveolar crest, okay, you need to connect the two CEJs together and draw another line, okay, perpendicular to the alveolar crest. If the two lines would become parallel with each other, then that is considered as horizontal pattern of bone loss. However, if the line, the two lines are not parallel like this, okay, they would form a certain angle, then that is considered as a vertical pattern of bone loss or angular pattern of bone loss. Okay. Most of the time, chronic periodontitis is associated with a horizontal pattern of bone loss. Aggressive periodontitis is most of the time associated with vertical or angular pattern of bone loss. But this is not always true. Okay? It's not always true na if it's horizontal pattern, chronic. If it's vertical or angular, it's aggressive. It's because bone loss is site specific. Okay? Bone loss is site specific, meaning to say bone loss only happens or occurs on the area where plaque would accumulate. So if for some weird reason, the patient is, drawing tayo ng bago. Okay, it's the alveolar crest. If for some weird reason, the patient is only able to clean one side, okay, the patient is not able to clean this side here, and plaque would tend to accumulate here. Of course, bone loss would only occur on that side. Yun yung bone loss mo. And you will end up having an angular pattern of bone loss. Okay? So bone loss is site specific. It only happens on area where there is plaque accumulation. All right? So going back to the difference between chronic and aggressive, these, ay, isa lang yung slide ko. Wait lang ha, I just need to add another slide. Okay, so these periodontal diseases can also be classified according to their extent. Okay, when you say extent, whether they are localized or generalized. Okay, so for chronic periodontitis, it's easy to classify this one. Okay, so for chronic periodontitis, you just need to compute if there is, let's see, if there's a 30%. Okay, that's what you need to remember. That is 30%. Okay, so you need to count now how many sites has periodontitis. Okay, and also you need to know the total number of sites. Okay, so for each tooth, we are probing 6 sites. Diba? One tooth, they're probing 6 sites normally, but unless you're using the Lang and Tonetti model, because in Lang and Tonetti model, we're not using 6, we're using 4. But normally, we are recording 6 sites for PPD, for CAL, for gingival recession. Okay, and a patient with a complete dentition would have 28 teeth. Okay? We do not include the third molars here. So meaning to say, if the patient has 28 teeth, the total number of sites for this one would be, can you compute? 28 times 6. 25, 25, 25, 25, 150, plus 30, 182. Tama ba? Ano yung total number of sites? 164 lang. Oh, mali yung compute. 168 sites. So 168 sites. Okay? Next, you need to count now how many of those sites has PPD that's 4 millimeter and above. Let's say you were able to count, 43 sites has periodontitis. Okay. So how would you compute now? How would you compute? Should be number of sites with perio divided by the total number of sites multiplied by 100. And what's your answer here? What's the answer? Number of sites with perio divided by total number of sites multiplied by 100. You'll be able to get 25.6%. Okay, 25.6%. So looking at our answer here, if we compare to the 30%, it's less than 30%. So meaning to say the patient has localized chronic periodontitis. Okay. However, let's say the patient has 23 teeth present. Then the patient has 20, 64 sites with periodontitis. So how would you compute now? That would be 64 divided by 23 times 6 times 100. So that would be 46.38%. And this one will be classified under generalized chronic periodontitis. So for chronic periodontitis, you need to compute. Okay? You need to compute for the 30%. Same as when you are trying to classify the extent for gingivitis. Diba? Whether if you want to know if the patient has clinically healthy gingiva, if the patient has localized gingivitis or generalized periodontitis. However, in the case of aggressive periodontitis, okay, in the case of aggressive periodontitis, we do not compute here. We just count. Bibilangin lang natin for us to know if there's localized aggressive or generalized aggressive. Okay. One of the findings in aggressive periodontitis is that patients who has this disease would have ano nangyayari? Ano nangyayari, Miss Branya? Wait lang. Wait lang. Ayusin ko lang yung screen ko. Kala ko ikaw na magdi-discuss. So, asan na ako? So, one of the findings on patients with aggressive periodontitis is that this patient would have incisors and first molar pattern. Okay. So if you saw that your patient has periodontitis on incisors and first molar, then most likely the patient would have aggressive periodontitis. Okay. Why are these the teeth that are often associated with aggressive periodontitis? Because they are the first ones to erupt, the first permanent teeth to erupt. First molars, followed by your incisors. Okay. So when trying to identify whether the patient has localized aggressive or generalized periodontitis, first thing that you need to check is that the patient should have incisors and first molar pattern. Okay, incisors and first molar pattern. Okay, for localized periodontitis, localized aggressive, the patient should have incisors and first molar pattern plus up to two teeth other than the incisors and first molars. Okay. If it becomes three or more, aside for the incisors and first molars, then that is classified as generalized periodontitis, aggressive. Okay, you just have to count the number of teeth. So for a patient who has periodontitis on tooth number 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 6, 3, 6, 2, 4, and 3, 5, how would you classify this one now? What's your classification here? Localized or generalized aggressive? This is just localized because you only have two teeth other than the incisors and first molars. Okay? But if it's like this, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 6, 2, 7, okay, 3, 7, 4, 4, okay. How would you classify this? You have your incisors and first molars here, then you have three teeth. So that is classified as generalized aggressive periodontitis. So do not be confused. If it's aggressive periodontitis, you don't need to compute anymore. You just need to count. Okay. If it's chronic periodontitis, then you need to compute for the 30%. All right. Next. So common features of aggressive periodontitis. Patient is clinically healthy or with minimal amount of plaque deposits, rapid attachment loss and bone destruction. So I have explained that already earlier. Familial aggregation. Okay. So most of the time, patients would have minimal amount of deposits only. However, when you check radiographically, there's pronounced bone loss, especially on the first molars and incisors. Okay. So secondary features, amount of deposits are inconsistent with the degree of destruction, elevated AA and PG. Okay. Porphyromonas gingivalis, Aggregatibacter actinomycetum comitans. So localized aggressive periodontitis, incisors and first molar, and up to two teeth. Okay. Generalized, you have incisors and first molars, and three or more teeth. All right. So let's go to number 3. So if a dentist finds only a thin ring of calculus in the bottom third of the pocket, it may be assumed that, so there's a thin ring of calculus though on the bottom third of the pocket. So what happened here? What happened here? That would be calculus previously extended to the enamel, but the top part was removed. Okay, so that's correct. Letter B. Calculus previously extended to the enamel, but the top part was removed. So it's like this. Okay. So originally, the tooth has calcular deposits up to here, up to here. Maybe what happened is that tinry tanggalin the patient using toothpick, okay, or the dentist, the previous dentist, was only able to remove this top portion. Okay, root planing was not performed. So what happened? Calcular deposits was removed here on this top part. However, there's still remaining calcular deposits on the bottom pocket. Okay, so always remember that before you can have subgingival calcular deposits, you need to have supragingival calcular deposits first. Same as with your plaque. For you to have subgingival plaque, you need to have supragingival plaque first. Okay? So what's the role of calculus? So as we already know, calculus is calcified plaque. So it calcified because of the saliva. Okay? So during the process of calcification, what happened to the bacteria present in plaque? It was reduced because your saliva has antibacterial property. Okay. So what happens now? Since your plaque calcified, it became harder, it's porous, it is rough, then it's now a niche for plaque accumulation, meaning to say it is plaque retentive. It's a plaque retentive factor. It's the most commonly occurring plaque retentive factor. When you say plaque retentive factor, we also refer to this as predisposing factors. Okay. Aside for calculus, other predisposing factors present in our mouth are overhanging dental restoration. What else? The clasps of the denture. Ano pa? Orthodontic brackets. Okay. So those are just some of the predisposing factors or plaque retentive factors. So of course, the supragingival plaque would be calcified by your saliva. However, the subgingival plaque will be calcified by your gingival crevicular fluid or your GCF. Okay, so it's porous. It's a good niche for plaque accumulation. Okay, we have here ito pa pala. Most of the time, you'll be able to find calcular deposits on areas, okay, adjacent to the area where salivary glands would excrete. Okay, so most of the time you'll be able to see the patients would have thick calcular deposits where on the buccal of molars, upper molars, lingual of lower incisors, di ba? Dun nag-accumulate yung calcular deposits because salivary ducts would excrete on those areas. Okay, nandun yung excretion nila. Just like on buccal of upper molars, you still remember what main excretory duct is present there? Buccal of upper molars. Ano yung main excretory duct natin doon? Miss Noof, open mo yung ilaw mo kasi i-evic kita ng i-evic kasi brown out sa inyo. Okay? The parotid is the salivary gland. So what is the main excretory duct of your parotid gland? The Stenson's duct. Stenson's duct. Okay? Do you still remember the main excretory duct of your submandibular gland? Submandibular gland. Whartons. Okay? So calculus would have different crystalline forms, okay, depending on their location. Supragingival calculus would have brushite, okay. The exterior area would have octacalcium phosphate. The inner layers of your calculus would have hydroxyapatite, di ba? Sabi nung endorse ng toothpaste. So hydroxyapatite, ha? Hindi siya hydroxyapatite. And subgingival, you have with locite. Okay, with locite. Pakitandaan to ha. So supragingival calculus, whitish to dark yellow or brownish mass with moderate hardness. Okay, so it's different from the subgingival calcular deposits. Okay, subgingival calcular deposits would appear as brownish, darker compared to your supragingival calcular deposits. What's the reason for this? But kaya to lighter and the subgingival calcareous deposits would appear as dark. Oxidation due to blood. Okay? Because of blood. Sabi natin, calcareous deposit is porous. Siyang butas. So it's able to absorb now. Diba? And since the gingiva is inflamed, there's bleeding happening on the area. Okay? So, bleed siya, calcareous deposits now able to absorb the stain from the blood. Okay, that's why it appears as brownish. Okay, minsan grayish, minsan blackish in color. Okay, unlike in your supragingival calcular deposits. So again, for you to have subgingival calcular deposits, you need to have supragingival calcular deposits first. It's a prerequisite. Okay. Number 4. Most numerous fibers in the periodontal ligament running from cementum in an oblique direction to insert into bone coronally. They bear impact to the masticatory stresses and transform them in tension on the alveolar bone. Pag hindi nyo pa nasagot yan, hindi ko na alam, ha? The answer is already there. Written there. Okay. Sige. Okay na, Miss Susoy. It says here, nasa na yan? Oblique direction. Okay? So, tama. Oblique. Giveaway question. That's already a giveaway question. Okay? So we have here the periodontal ligament. As you already know, periodontal ligament is one of the parts or component of the periodontium. There are 4 main components of the periodontium. You still remember them. So first is the PDL space. PDL. What are the other 3 components of periodontium? Or the components of the periodontium? Cementum. Correct. Very good. What else? Dalawa pa. Gingiva. And lastly, you have your alveolar bone. Okay, so these are the 4 main components of the periodontium. So periodontal ligament, the width is approximately around 0.25 millimeters. That's why if you try to move the teeth, okay, our teeth would have physiologic mobility. But we have physiologic mobility because of the periodontal ligaments. If the tooth would not move, then it means that it's ankylosed. It's directly attached to the bone. Okay, so normally we have physiologic mobility. That's why on your vitality test, di ba, you have their mobility. Some of you would answer negative. Negative kasi means ankylosed. Diba? Negative is ankylosed, so that's wrong. You can either write physiologic or normal. Okay? So we have different types of periodontal ligament. You have your transeptal, alveolar crest fibers, horizontal fibers, oblique fibers, apical fibers, and interradicular fibers. So for transeptal fibers, it's this one. Okay, it has the cementum to cementum attachment. Cementum to cementum attachment. Transeptal. Okay. Alveolar crest fibers, this one, okay? So this would prevent extrusion and prevent lateral tooth movements. Prevent extrusion and lateral tooth movement. Okay? Horizontal fibers extends at right angles to the long axis of the tooth from the cementum to the alveolar bone. Okay? I forgot to discuss this one, transeptal. So I've mentioned earlier, transeptal fibers has cementum to cementum attachment. If you look closely here, it is also responsible for returning teeth to their original state after orthodontic therapy. Have you heard of the term relapse? Hindi yung relapse na heartbroken, ha? Relapse. So after ortho, you did not wear your retainer, then there would be relapse. Being, uh, your teeth will not be aligned anymore, di ba? Your retainers would not fit anymore. Okay, so what happens during relapse? Okay, so let's say you have a tooth. This is the tooth here. And let's say the canine is rotated. Okay, rotated yung canine. And you try to derotate the canine. Okay, you try to derotate the canine until such time that you're able to achieve this one. Okay, so it's now properly aligned. Okay, after derotating, there's a big chance that this tooth would rotate again. Rotate again siya. Okay, so because of that, we need to cut the transeptal fibers. You need to get your blade, okay, blade number 11, okay, and you need to cut around here. To cut mo, literally, you will be cutting, okay, the transeptal fibers. You want to cut the transeptal fibers here, okay? That is to prevent the tooth from rotating again because as you cut the transeptal fibers, as it heals, you are now creating scar here. There would be scar formation, so resisting the rotation of the tooth from its original position. Okay, you call that your Edwards technique. Technique. Okay. Ano nga to? Wait lang. Supracrestal. Kalimutan ko tuloy. Fibrotomy. Ano pang isang word? Wait lang. Hala, may just search siya. Supracrestal fibrotomy. Gingival? Hindi. Circumferential. Circumferential. Circumferential supracrestal fibrotomy or your Edwards technique. So that's what they do after orthodontic treatment, okay, to prevent the tooth from retreating because it's the transeptal group or the transeptal fibers that are responsible for that rotation, for that relapse. Okay, so horizontal fibers we have here extends at right angles to the long axis of the tooth from the cementum to the alveolar bone. So that's the horizontal group. Then you have your oblique fibers. This is the one in the question. It's the most numerous, basically. Most numerous, pinakamadami. Okay? Largest group. So they bear the masticatory forces or stresses. Okay? And they transform them into tension. on the alveolar bone. That's your oblique fibers, most numerous, largest group. Then we have the apical fibers. So apical fibers prevents tooth tipping, prevents tooth tipping. Okay? It resists luxation and protects neurovascular supply to the tooth. Okay, that's your apical fibers. And lastly, we have the interradicular group. So interradicular group says here number 4. Okay, number 4. Okay, so it's found only between roots of the multi-rooted tooth, running from cementum into bone, forming crest of the interradicular septum. Okay, so sa multi-rooted tooth lang siya. It prevents luxation, prevents tooth tipping and torquing. Okay, so these periodontal ligaments would extend into the bone or into the cementum. They would insert sa bone or cementum. So these extension, okay, are also known as your Sharpey's fibers. Sharpey's fibers, okay? They're periodontal ligaments that would tend to insert into the cementum and into the bone. And looking at the Sharpey's fibers present in the bone as compared to the cementum, the ones inserting into the bone are thicker, mas makapal, as compared to the ones present in the cementum. They are thinner. Makapal sa bone, thicker, thinner into the cementum. Okay? Number 5, in periodontal health, the gingival sulcus primarily contains the following contents, with the exception of periodontal health. Ano daw yung hindi makikita sa periodontal health? Alin? It's letter D. Diba? Kasi there's no bleeding. Walang bleeding. So dapat, there's also absence of RBC, red blood cells. Okay? So the answer is letter D, red blood cells. Right? Number 6, the space bounded by the tooth and free gingiva and having the junctional epithelium at its base is termed. So if you're faced with this question, let's say you're taking the board exam, our alumni has just finished taking their theoretical board exam. Okay? So soon kayo naman yung mag-exam few months from now, di ba? So if you're faced with this type of question, it's best for you to draw first. Drawing kayo, kahit rough drawing lang. Okay? So it says here, so you have your bone, and you are to draw your gingiva now. You know that the gingiva is ganyan, okay? So space bounded by the tooth surface and free gingiva having the junctional epithelium at its base. So, ito daw yung junctional epithelium mo, okay? Okay? And it's bounded by the tooth, this part, ito, and the free gingiva. This is your free gingiva. So those are the boundary. Itong tooth, itong junctional epithelium, this free gingiva. So you're asked to identify this one. Ay, hindi pala yan. This one. This one. What is that? Kasi space eh, hindi naman epithelium. So you're asked to identify this space. That is your, tama, gingival sulcus. But if you're asked to identify this one, what would be your answer? Yeah, that one. Wala siya dito. Wala siya dito. If you're asked to identify that one, that would be your circular epithelium. Okay? Circular epithelium. Your free gingival groove is this one. Okay? Free gingival groove. Alright? Your mucogingival junction is here. So what is bounded by your mucogingival junction and your free gingival groove? What is this? What part of the gingiva is that? Attached gingiva. Very good. Attached gingiva. Okay? Ito pala, may drawing pala dyan. Okay? Number 7. Which of the following parameters are indicative of gingival health? Indicative of gingival health. Letter D. Firm consistency with the gingival margin. Okay? So if the question goes, what is the earliest sign of gingivitis naman? Letter A. Bleeding upon probing. So you need to read the question carefully. Ha? Read the question carefully. All right? So we have several parameters that are being used. Okay, since we're talking about parameters here, we have several parameters here that we use in assessing a patient for periodontal disease. Some of the parameters are your visual examination, bleeding on probing, what else? PPD, pocket probing depth, oops, clinical attachment level or clinical attachment loss. Keep in mind that we use clinical attachment level if there is no periodontal disease. If there's no attachment loss, level tayo, clinical attachment level. But if there's periodontitis, we call it clinical attachment loss already. Okay, so if the patient is healthy, then it's clinical attachment level. Then we have gingival recession, furcation involvement, okay, mobility, okay. We mentioned physiologic mobility earlier. Physiologic mobility measures around 0.2 millimeters. Okay. So grade 1 mobility is around 0.5 to 1 millimeter facial-lingual movement. Grade 2 mobility measures 1 to 2 millimeter facial-lingual movement, while grade 3 mobility is more than 2 millimeter facial-lingual movement with vertical displacement. Okay? So for bleeding on probing, PPD, CAL, gingival recession, we use periodontal probe. For furcation involvement, we use a special probe, which is your neighbor's furcation probe. Okay. For the periodontal probe, we use UNC 15. Okay. And the tip of the periodontal probe measures around 0.5 millimeter in diameter. Okay. So the amount of pressure that you need to apply when probing is around 20 to 25 grams of force. Okay. So you would know that it's 20 to 25 grams of force when you try to press on your fingernail. Dapat nagbablanch siya. That's 20 to 25 grams. Okay. But of course, you should not be using the probe itself. Ha? Check ko muna 20 to 25. That's the one you insert sa patient. No. You practice muna using your pen. How heavy ba yung 20 to 25 grams of force? Okay? So if you were able to apply less than 20 to 25 grams of force, then there's inadequate force. Okay? No bleeding. False negative tayo. If it's more than 20 to 25 grams of force, then yes, there would be bleeding. However, it's bleeding due to the force or trauma. Bleeding due to the force or trauma. Excessive yung force. Okay? Number 8. Tooth number 24 has 3 millimeter of exposed lingual root as measured by a probe from the CEJ to the free gingival margin. Your periodontal diagnosis is, so tooth number 24. Okay. So buccal lingua. Sabi niya, has exposed lingual root. It's exposed lingual root. So the gingiva is somewhere here. Okay. This is the bone. The exposed lingual root as measured from the CEJ to the free gingiva. So the answer is, tama letter E, recession. Okay. Gingival recession. So if you're having a hard time imagining what's written, you can try to draw. Drawing mo. Okay? Para you'll be able to answer properly. Okay? So gingival recession is displacement of the soft tissue margin apical to the cemento enamel junction with root surface exposure. Okay? Migration of the mucogingival line beyond the CEJ or root exposure. Okay? Almost part of the normal life associated with aging. As you already know, every year there is around 0.1 millimeter attachment loss happening on our teeth. So that's why you would find on older patients, yung mga matatandang patients, they have recession already. So that is physiologic. And there's no treatment for physiologic recession. Okay? So you're now 20 years old, di ba? By the time that you become 30 years old, you would have around 1 millimeter recession and attachment loss. When you become 40 years old, you would have 2 millimeter attachment loss. 50, 3 millimeter. Okay? That is physiologic. That's normal, associated with aging. Okay? We also have here, ito pala, most common cause of gingival recession is toothbrush trauma. Ano ba nangyari sa canvas? Nahack ba yung canvas kahapon? Ano kahapon pa nagsasend ng memo yung canvas sa amin? So most common cause of gingival recession is toothbrushing trauma. We also have this one, dehiscence. Okay? Root exposure because of alveolar resorption and has gingival recession that goes with it. So looking at this dehiscence, it's a severe form of gingival recession basically. So if you try to assess the patient's teeth, clinically you'll be able to see gingival recession or root exposure here. So this is different from fenestration or fenestra. Okay, fenestration is not clinically seen. So clinically, you'll be able to see something like this. Ganito siya. You won't be able to see the root. It's because the gingiva is covering the area of fenestration. However, underneath that gingiva, you have this one, an area of denuded bone. So this usually happens during orthodontic movement. Okay? Na mali ng tip si dentist ng tooth. So there's fenestration now. Okay? So you don't just tip the teeth, you also have to consider that there's also root there. Some dentists kasi forgets that there's root. Okay, sige, let's lingualize this one. So if you try to lingualize this, what will happen? Of course, the roots would be positioned in a more buccal position, thus piercing through the bone. Okay? Sana naman, bodily movement, masyado nilabelize yung teeth, denuded na yung bone. Oops, sorry, let's go back again. Diba? You have to consider that also. Number 9. Gingivitis is most often caused by hormonal imbalance, inadequate oral hygiene, occlusal trauma, vitamin deficiency, aging. Of course, the answer is inadequate oral hygiene, because what you need to know here is the etiology of periodontal disease, be it gingivitis or periodontitis, are the microorganism or the plaque, okay? This can be due to inadequate oral hygiene or poor oral hygiene. Sometimes biofilm is also used. If you want to be more specific on the microorganism, these are your gram-negative anaerobic microorganisms. Okay. Number 10. Gingival changes evident during pregnancy probably result from the effect of, so medyo mahirap yung question. What's your guess? Progesterone, letter B. Okay, that's correct. Letter B, progesterone is the answer. Okay. So we have here estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen regulates the growth, development, and physiology of the human reproductive system. Okay, it influences the neuroendocrine, skeletal, adipose, and cardiovascular systems. Okay, while progesterone, on the other hand, okay, maintain a decreased level of vascular tone in the myometrium. However, for metrium, for periodontal, okay, for the gums, it influences production of inflammatory mediators. Okay, inflammatory mediators, progesterone. All right. Number 11. Supragingival plaque is unattached or loosely adherent, dominated by gram-negative, acquires nutrition from saliva and host diet, is dominated by anaerobes. Supragingival plaque. So the answer is letter C. Correct, letter C. Okay? Sabi dito, unattached or loosely adherent. That's wrong. Because by definition, plaque are self-adherent tenacious mass, okay, that has an organized matrix. Okay? Dominated by gram-negative microorganisms, not all the time. During the early stages of plaque accumulation, there's more gram-positive, aerobic, and not anaerobic. Okay? Once plaque matures, then there would be a shift. It becomes gram-negative, anaerobic. microorganism. Okay. Number 12, gingiva, which is free from significant accumulation of inflammatory cells. It's free from significant accumulation. Wala siyang inflammation. There's no inflammation happening. Absence of inflammation. Walang pus, walang microorganisms present. There's no inflammatory infiltrates. Okay? That is pristine tayo. Histologic perfection. Histologic perfection. Pristine gingiva. Okay? How would you be able to classify pristine, clinically healthy, and gingivitis? Diba you need to compute for the percentage? How many percent of the site has bleeding on probing? So for clinically healthy, up to how many percent dapat? Very good. Up to? Actually, up to 9 lang dapat. Should be less than 10. Diba? So once you reach 10, then it becomes gingivitis. Okay? So 10 to 30, that is localized gingivitis. Okay? More than 30, that is generalized gingivitis. Okay? So do not confuse this with chronic periodontitis. Ha? For this one, kasi we have clinically healthy up to 9%. All right? So pristine gingiva, purely experimental. Thick in color, cream consistency, histologic. You already know this. Let's skip. So for this one, bacteria is already present. There's some form of inflammation happening already. As I've mentioned, up to 9% only. Okay. Number 13. Localized aggressive periodontitis is confined in. Ay, sinagutan na natin kanina yan. Incisors and first molar. Okay. Up to how many teeth for localized aggressive? Up to 2 teeth only. Once it reaches 3, so 3 or more, that's generalized aggressive periodontitis. Right? Fourteen. Rapid attachment loss and bone destruction is. Parang sagot na natin kanina yan. Rapid attachment loss and bone destruction. Fast progressing. So, localized aggressive periodontitis. Okay? Ba't may necrotizing dito? Kasi there's necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis, necrotizing ulcerative periodontitis. So let's review the necrotizing periodontal diseases. When you say necrotizing, what happens to the gingiva? What happens to the periodontal ligament? It necroses. There's decay. Okay, soft tissue decay. Okay, so we have different types. The first one is your necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis. Okay, so this is also known as your trench mouth or your Vincent's infection. Okay, so this is patients with necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis. Sometimes it's anug, tawag nila. Okay, who would have punched out papilla. Ayan, punch out papilla. Papilla. Okay? Confined on the papilla and the free gingiva, yung necrosis. Parang it's just starting. Okay? How do you treat this? How do you manage this? Antibiotic tayo. Amoxicillin, okay? Or metronidazole, or combination. Okay? Yan, punch out papilla. There's fetid smell, mabaho. Okay? There is also, look here, there's also fever. So it's an infection. So since it's an infection, you need to give antibiotic in the form of amoxicillin or metronidazole or combination of both. Okay? So if left untreated, it would progress to become necrotizing ulcerative periodontitis. So ganito na siya ngayon. Okay? So what do you notice here? Necrosis has extended beyond the pre-gingival groove. It's now on the attached gingiva already. Sa attached gingiva na siya. It says here that there is no pocket formation, but there is attachment loss. There's no pocket formation because it has necrosed already. So periodontal ligaments has necrosed, so that's why there's attachment loss. However, if you try to insert your probe, you won't be able to probe anything kasi there's no gingiva here na. It has necrosed already. So again, with attachment loss, okay, without pocket formation. Earlier in Anug, okay, no attachment loss, no pocket formation. No attachment loss because necrosis is only confined to the free gingiva and the interdental papilla. Okay? If left untreated, it would now be called necrotizing ulcerative stomatitis. So what's the difference between this one to your necrotizing ulcerative periodontitis? Earlier, in necrotizing ulcerative periodontitis, it's only limited up to the attached gingiva. So for this one, it has already extended beyond the mucogingival junction. Okay, so if this is the tooth here, have your bone there. Okay, so if necrosis is only up to here, then that is your anug. Okay, if it has extended up to here, then anug beyond the pre-gingival groove. If it has extended up to here, beyond the mucogingival junction, then it is necrotizing ulcerative stomatitis. All right? So management is metronidazole or combination with Amox. Number 15. Which of the following needs to be evident in order to make a diagnosis of periodontitis? So, para makadiagnose ka ng periodontitis, it should be evident. Bleeding, pocket depth, geographic bone loss. Sabi natin, what's the difference between perio and gingivitis? Perio, you have bone loss. Diba? Gingivitis is only limited to the gingiva. Okay? So for this one, radiographic evidence of bone loss. If you compare patient with gingivitis and periodontitis radiographically, diba? Patient with gingivitis would have normal findings in the radiograph. However, for patients with periodontitis, you would find their bone loss happening. Okay? And where is the bone loss? Where is it located? Is it in the apical area? Where's the bone loss superior? In the alveolar crest, near the cervical area of the teeth, alveolar crest. Okay, so it happens or starts on the alveolar crest. So radiographic evidence of bone loss. Gingivitis, periodontitis. Okay, so let's have a short break. Okay, let's have a short break muna. It's now 9:35. 15-minute break lang para we can have an early lunch. Okay? 15 minutes. So, 35, 45, 50, 9:50. Okay, 9:50.